Oh, hello! Welcome back. CorgiXP here, and welcome to video 2 of our Command Block Academy series. Last episode, we went over the very basics of commands and command blocks, and today we're going to be going into a little bit more detail about the different selectors, the different attributes, and some of the custom NBT data that you can potentially give to summoned entities, items, and stuff like that. And eventually, again, this is all going to lead into our big project at the end of this series, at the end of our data pack dash, when we actually go and create our very own adventure map. It's going to be super, super fun. So grab that notepad, hit that subscribe button, and let's go ahead and get on into today. So, when we left off, we gave ourselves 6 diamonds, and we started to go over the different selectors that are available to you in a command. So, for instance, when we do /give, you'll notice how we have all these different selectors now. So going over them, if you highlight over them, or if you're on Bedrock, it'll automatically put them in as a list for you over on the left hand side. You have at A, which is all players. You have at E, which is all entities. You have at N, which is the nearest entity. You have at P, which is the nearest player. You have at R, which is a random player, whoever is currently in your world, and you have at S, which is the current entity or self, or whoever is executing that command. And of course, if anyone is currently in your world, it can give you the direct player's name directly. So if I had a friend with me, then they would be listed alongside me here as well. And all these different selectors have different uses, in commands. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work, depending on how exactly you set them up. So let's go ahead and give a quick example of, let's say, a teleport command. Let's go ahead and copy our command block and button. And what we're going to do is let's go ahead and show you something that's not going to work, because the selector isn't triggering based on us. So if we do TP at S and we do 0, -60, 0, it's not going to work. And I'll explain why in a second. So notice how it didn't teleport anyone, and it didn't even teleport the command block. But wait a minute. Earlier on in last episode, when we did /say at S, nothing showed. Or it showed that the server said something. So why didn't the command block, which is the one executing the command, get teleported? Well, it can't teleport itself because there's no entity was found. So we need to change at S to something that can be found. So for instance, if you want to teleport every single player, you can do TP at A, and it'll now teleport every single player to 0, -60, 0. You probably won't want to do that though, unless you know for sure of a specific attribute that you want to set for at A, which we'll go over momentarily. So most likely for a simple command like this, where let's say you have a pressure plate, on the ground, and you want that player to teleport if they walk over the pressure plate, you can change this to at P, because that's the nearest player, and now you'll only teleport that specific player, and anyone else in your world will not get teleported to this location. Otherwise, if you kept it at A, then that wouldn't work. So what about that at S command? Like, why would you want to use at S in something? Well, there's something called execute, and execute allows you to check for something if it's true. Execute allows you to check for something if it's false, and execute also allows you to run something as another entity. So let's go ahead and set up another command block. We're not going to go too into detail with execute commands today. We'll do this in our next video. But execute basically allows you to do different things based on another entity's information, or whatever another entity is doing, or if another entity is the one triggering the command, you can actually cause it to trigger someone else, which is really neat. So let's go ahead and type in execute. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different, options. For this case, we're going to be using what's called as. Most of the time, you will be using as or if in commands. Sometimes you might be using at. We'll get again into that momentarily in the next video. But most of the time, you're going to be mostly using at, as, or if. Execute if means if something is true or false, and then execute as means execute as the entity that you're triggering for. So now that we know that TP at P works, we can execute as P. And what this now means is the person triggering or self excuse me, is at P. So we can now use at S later on in the command. So whenever you use execute, you need to do what's called run, because you need to tell it to run a specific command. So now what we can do is run TP, and we can use at S, because rather than now the S standing for the command block or the server, S now stands for at P, because you're executing the command as the nearest player, which is super cool because you can use this for a whole bunch of different things, such as scoreboards, games, and execute has so much power that you can use in command blocks. And next video we'll touch base on pretty much all of that. So let's go ahead and continue and teleport now to 0, -60, 0, and unlike before, where at S did not work, it now works. Because again, we are now telling at S is to be executed as that nearest player. Super, super cool. So now, what if we want to do something along the lines of sending a message based on someone's attributes? So let's say you're running a game, a quest, a map, something like that, and you want someone's, I don't know, let's say score or points to be a certain amount before a message is noted. What we can do is set up a scoreboard and then use attributes along that selector to trigger something specifically that we want. So let's go ahead and place down another command block and a button. But before we do anything, we have to actually set up, the scoreboard and figure out how many points we want someone to have before it actually triggers. So when we set up a scoreboard, what you need to do first is set it up under /scoreboard. And there's two different things of objectives or players. Objectives is to actually modify or create an objective. And then players is to modify, create, remove, whatever for a specific player on that objective. So we need to add an objective first. So scoreboard objectives, we need to add one. And let's go ahead and call this quest points. And after you set what you want that scoreboard name to be, notice how there's a whole bunch of other different options right here. These different options basically tell what kind of scoreboard that objective is going to be. If you're only looking for points, where you can use what's called dummy. We'll go into all these different options later on in this series as well, when we specifically target scoreboard, which I believe is going to be video 6 of our series. So scoreboards, again, will be fully detailed later on. But for now, let's just go ahead and use dummy. Basically, just dummy means is that scoreboard is literally just going to be used for numbers and storing data. So we'll go ahead and use dummy. And now that creates quest points as a dummy Scoreboard. Now what we need to do is actually give ourselves points on that scoreboard, and then we can use that scoreboard to check from our selector that we want to use. So let's go ahead and now scoreboard players, and we have to set our score. So we can either at this point use @s because I'm the one running that command, or we can, you know, put in our name directly. Really doesn't matter. Let's just go ahead and put in my name, and we need to tell which objective that we're targeting. So quest points. And let's go ahead for now, and as you can see, score is also required. Let's set it to 3 just for now. So I now have 3 as my score on quest points. Let's go ahead and make this command do something specific based on someone's score or player's score. So let's go ahead and do a very basic let's do a basic say command where we want to say to specific people if they have a matching score that they're ready, you know, for the next level, next quest, something like that. So let's go ahead and say, actually, no, let's not do say, because that's going to be difficult to do. Let's do the same give command that we did earlier. And we're going to do all entities with, and notice how we get that, you know, bracket. So that bracket is going to signify that we're now going to add an attribute. Let's go ahead and do the attribute opener. And we want to check for a scores. So scores equals, once you do equals, you need to tell it which objective you want to find the scores from. So we have quest points, and we need to now tell it how many points that we want to check for. So let's go ahead and do 5 as a test. And for some reason that's not working. Scores equals quest points. That's why, because this needs to be like this. Scores equals squirrely brackets. Sorry about that. Because the scores from the dashboard or scoreboard is what's called an NBT data, and that's how you bring in that information. So anything that requires NBT data, you need the squiggly brackets for. So quest points will equal to 5. And now we can go ahead and close that out. And you can see that it's now good because it turned blue rather than red. So I was just missing the squirrely brackets because, again, scoreboards store their data as NBT data, and in order to provide or parse NBT data, you need those squirrely brackets. And now that we're checking if any player, so at A is all players, for points of 5, let's go ahead and give them diamond. So, since I do not have 5 points and I only have 3, this will not give me anything because it has not found any entity with a point of 5. So what we can do is now change our points. So scoreboard players set for myself quest points. Now we change it to 5. So now that I have 5 points, it will find all players with points of 5, and it will give me a diamond. Super cool. And every time I use it now, it'll keep giving me diamonds. But now let's go ahead and give myself back to 4. Now that I have 4 points, I no longer get those diamonds. Super duper cool. Other than the selector having special attributes, you can also give special attributes to items that you give someone. So let's go ahead and give someone, or let's use P in this case. So give at P, so the nearest player, and let's go ahead and give them an iron sword. And as you notice, iron sword also has that optional attribute bracket. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and first give it, let's say, an enchantment. So enchantments. And whenever we signify an enchantment, that is also stored as NBT data. So once we do the equals, we also need these squiggly brackets. And let's go ahead and give it, I would say maybe Minecraft. Let's do sharpness. Yeah, let's give it a sharpness level. And let's go ahead and give it a sharpness level of 2. So what this will do is basically it's giving Iron Sword. It's predefining the enchantment that we want on it. We're giving it Minecraft sharpness. Minecraft is the namespace for that enchantment. And then we're giving it an amplifier of 2. But let's not stop there. What we can also do is give it more data for it to read. So for instance, instead of it just being named Iron Sword, we can actually also give it a custom name, which is really, really cool. And let's go ahead and make the custom name Sharp Sword. And again, once we're now done, count is optional. You can put 1 if you want to, but it will always default to 1 if you don't have that optional count. So let's go ahead and done. Let's go ahead and click the button. And now we have Sharp Sword with sharpness level 2. Really, really cool. So items can have that optional attribute, as well as the selectors can have those optional attributes. Same thing with the attributes to like give something or set something. You can now use this to do certain actions that you wouldn't want to target other people with. So for example, let's go ahead and set up another command block. And let's give ourselves an armor stand. Now, why am I giving myself an armor stand? Just so I can show you something real quick. Let's go ahead and put the command as kill at E. Based on this, what do you think is going to happen? At E means every single entity. So you would think that just entities means this. Wait till you see. Oh, you died too. All entities means player in Java, as well as that entity. So, yeah, we probably don't want that to happen. Let's go ahead and pick myself up real quick. So let's place our armor stand back down. And yeah, we don't want that to happen. So what can we do in this situation? The special attributes now allow us to only do certain entities. So for instance, we can check for at E type. And then type can be armor stand. So now what will happen is it'll only check for all entities with a type of armor stand. Here's our armor stand. Here's myself before I killed both of us, but now it only killed that armor stand entity. Nice. We survived. And finally, what we can also do is set NBT data directly in those commands as well if it's not specifically tied to a selector or item. So for example, most of the time you may want to use custom NBT data for, let's say, a summon command. And again, summon commands will not be gone over in detail this video. We'll go ahead and go over that in video number 5 for summon commands. But for now, we'll just do a very basic summon command. And I'll show you what the NBT data, will look like. So we'll go ahead and put in summon. Let's go ahead and summon a cat. And we want to go ahead and summon it 1 block above the command block. So what we can do is what's called relative positioning. Relative positioning will be explained more in detail next video as well. And basically what relative positioning is, it just means tilde, 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 which means wherever the command block is, or wherever the command is being executed from. So since it's in the command block, it'll be executed from the command block. If it was being executed from where I'm standing, if I were to type that command in, then the tilde 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 would signify where I currently am. So if we do it here, it'll be based on the command block. If I was out, let's say over here, and I did that summon command, it would summon right here where I'm currently standing versus the command block. So let's go ahead and continue this though. And we wanted to summon one above. So you have your X coordinate, your Y coordinate, and your Z coordinate. If you want to go up, that means the Y coordinate. So all we have to do is add a 1 next to that tilde, which now tells it that Y coordinate plus 1. If you wanted it to spawn below the command block, then it would be -1, but we don't want that. So we want +1 right there. Perfect. And now, as you can see, you now have the optional NBT data. Since it's not tied to a selector or an item, NBT data can be directly written with the regular squiggly brackets. And we can go ahead and let's go ahead and give our cat a custom name of, let's do super cute cat. Perfect. So now it'll summon a cat named Super Cute Cat. Hi, buddy. So cute. Super cute cat. So I think that'll be it for today's video. We learned a whole bunch about selectors, special attributes, a little bit about relative positioning, and NBT data. Next video, we'll be going over strictly about execute commands and a lot more about that relative positioning. So thank you all very, very much for watching. Hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, friends.